Hello, hello. How's it going? We are live for our new we're going to try to do a weekly live stream every Wednesday, but we're going to be talking about the no code movement. So, someone brought no code up to me a little while ago. And I feel like I didn't up until I would say recently, I hadn't really looked into it. And I kind of just gave this somewhat blank piece of advice, like just ignore it, it's irrelevant. And I don't think that's quite true the more that I look into it. So the title of this video currently is, will no code replace developers? And it's yes and no. It 100% will replace developers, but not the majority. And we're going to dive into that. All right, so I am going to give people about 5 minutes to hop in chat. Juiced already says he already says no, he disagrees. So we're gonna really dive into this. I'm excited for this one. All right, so I have a slightly new setup. So can people let me know if they can hear my mic, if it sounds all right? Let me know. We're gonna go ahead and toss on probably synthwave for this one. All right. So over the coming weeks, I'll probably get my setup ironed out a little bit more. But let's go ahead and do this. All right, royalties free synthwave. Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff. Is it no thanks, Jeff? Is your name actually Jeff? This should be good. Royalty free. We'll do this one. Let's see if it's allowed at first. I can't hear it. Can you hear it? No one can hear it. Oh, that's why. That's why. All right. Oh, okay. We gotta adjust our sound settings. I think it auto reset. Let's go ahead and connect. Headphones. There we go. Let's turn it down just a bit. That should be good. What no code is, we will be talking about it. All right, so we'll have kind of a little beat in the background. All right, I think we're good to go. So I'm not gonna mess with my lighting. I will continue to edit that, but all right, so let's dive into it. So the idea behind, like, what is no code? What is low code in general? Essentially it's kind of just it gives non-coding people, for the most part, options to be able to automate things, to be able to produce, I don't know, logical execution, logical strategies that are kind of automated that usually you would need a developer to customize. Usually, like when you bring integrations together, or even if like you're building a website, very often like it's been tossed to the engineering team, the development team to build a custom solution every single time. And what no code allows pretty much non-coding people to do is not need engineers, not need developers to be able to build a lot of their automations or even build semi-complex products, which is really interesting. So I want to share a little story from my first position that kind of got me thinking about this, but I put it aside. There's got to be code somewhere. I agree with you, Andrew. So in my first position, we had laid off a lot of people, and there was a marketing director that was brought in, and I remember going up and introducing myself as an engineer and just welcoming her to the company, and I felt like the interaction was kind of cold. And I was like, huh, that's kind of strange. She seemed bubbly when I watched her interact with, all of these, everyone else in the company. I'm like, maybe it was me. Maybe I said it the wrong way. I don't know. And then what I found out a little bit later is she's not a fan of engineers. She, at previous companies, had realized that the engineering team was sucking up a lot of money in companies, and it's true. And at first, when I thought of that, I'm like, I don't know, is she just jealous? Like, did she try engineering at some point? It just wasn't for her? Or like, this seems kind of like a weird take to have, to just be kind of abrasive to engineers. And it is. Like, it was an abrasive response. But when I dug into it, and I kind of like would ask questions about like how much the engineering team actually costs, it was like the bigger chunk of what the business itself costs. And we weren't even an engineering focused company. It's ridiculous how expensive engineering departments are. We get paid a lot of money. And so I learned that she had found solutions, a lot of automations, to kind of replace a lot of the custom solutions engineers were building, especially like internal integrations within the company to connect different apps and kind of just bring everything together. She found solutions to be able to substitute that. I don't know which is the correct word. And it's true. A lot of product managers, a lot of business folks, a lot of even design UX are discovering solutions that definitely, at least in terms of I'm not going to get into it now. You know what? We're going to dive into like what this is replacing exactly down the road. But essentially, no code movement is basically about not over engineering your solutions. And it's okay to create custom templates that are going to be reusable. It's okay to design business practices to adapt to, or like bring in reusable templates that engineers don't have to build. They just have to build once, and that's it, right? And so even when we talk about this idea of, well, engineers have to kind of create those automations to begin with, yeah, but they're going to be a few set of engineers. And I think what we're going to start seeing is engineers that don't dive into complexity, engineers that kind of just want to build like, basic content management systems and static pages. Those are the engineers that are going to lose their jobs eventually. And so this is a movement that slowly will progress. I think we're at even with automations, we're at a very initial part of that movement, a very basic part where engineers are still highly valued. And I think engineers that do really keep up with their skills are always going to be highly valued. But a lot of engineers that get comfortable, a lot of engineers that just want to build very simple solutions, or even engineers, senior engineers that want to constantly over-engineer their solutions. And sometimes you see this with senior engineers. They will kind of like carve out their part of the code base and make it so obscure and so non-understandable by everyone else that they become dependent. Like the business becomes dependent on keeping them on board. And I've seen that with layoffs. I've seen that happen where they were the only ones that knew. It was like very siloed information. They knew exactly how that piece worked. So when layoffs happened, they didn't get laid off only because they were the only ones that had knowledge in that part of the code base. And I think businesses are starting to wise up. I think they're starting to, especially with inflation being a horrible thing right now, especially with businesses trying to figure out how not to lay people off. They're starting to realize, I mean, they already have been over the past 10 years, but they're starting to realize that siloed information and siloed responsibilities like that are not a good thing for the company as a whole. And they're starting to prevent engineers from being able to do that. There's so much I want to dive into with this. So you can write pseudocode and it's converted to code, drag and drop features. So I guess we'll wrap up the definitions. A lot of what you see with like how you build out a lot of these automations and how you build out even just these products, it's a lot of drag and drop. You get that with no code, but with the low code, so I do think there's a distinction with the low code. Usually, so okay, hold on. I actually took notes for this one. So we're gonna dive into this. So yeah, no code, very like between low code and no code is definitely the simplest. Usually you're gonna see like a lot of visual drag and drop features. The thing is, it doesn't scale well. There's not a lot of complexity. There's not a high skill cap if you're a gamer. Usually you need to write some sort of scripting, some sort of logical scripting to be able to dive into complex execution, to build more complex products. And that's happening with low code, where it's introducing a lot of these kind of tech savvy, but not with the coding background positions. Now they're able to, as long as they're willing to learn, you know, kind of just basic programming logic and kind of dive into some basic code, they're able to produce amazing things. So the low code, the no code stuff, it's going to be very secluded. It's going to be very isolated to these like very, in my opinion, like specific, not necessarily basic, but very specific solutions. Until, you know, this movement progresses, because I think a lot more is going to be automated down the road. Low code, it's scalable. Low code enables tons of opportunities for non-coding backgrounds to build really cool automated solutions, and quite frankly, lower the amount of engineering expenses in a company. And that's a good thing. That's actually a good thing. And so I think when people hear no code and low code, they get this, it's this like anxiety, this fear, but it shouldn't be. All it's doing, in my opinion, is distinguishing people that really want to pursue engineering and be able to build complex custom solutions. Those engineers that are hungry to learn coding, those engineers that are hungry to stay up to date with technology, are going to make a lot of fucking money. Like a lot of fucking money. I can't emphasize that enough. If you are an engineer that keeps up to date and you are someone that cares about your craft, you are going to make a ton of money down the road. A lot of engineers. So when a lot of engineers that kind of didn't keep up with things and they get laid off, that does, I mean, it's unfortunate, but you also see that practice with automation just being introduced in the world in general. People that weren't willing to adapt to technology, a lot of the positions, they didn't want to even be able, and not even just create the systems that are going to automate their jobs, but they didn't even want to manage the systems that are going to automate their job. If you don't progress with how this world is progressing, for the better or worse, you're going to get left behind. And I think there's going to be a range of skill levels that you should aim for depending on your industry, depending on your job. But if you're not willing to adapt whatsoever, how much do you really care about your job? Right? And so this really distinguishes people from kind of just moving into engineering to get money, and engineers that love coding and engineering and want to learn all of this that it entails. And I promise you, you will be very successful in your career if you continue down this path. So I don't think this movement is going to it's going to cause developers to lose their jobs 100%. And that is a good thing for the industry. A lot of the developers that are going to lose their jobs, they weren't really, like, their heart just wasn't in it. That's how I truly see this. This will not replace developers that love what they do. And so I actually, I have a few articles that I brought up too. We're going to dive into this a little bit more, but feel free to, if you disagree, you agree, post it in chat. We'll definitely keep up with chat. But I have an article that I mostly disagree with, because I kind of just skimmed through these. I have an article that more or less agree with, and I kind of just want to dive on maybe Reddit or Quora if we have time, just to see what people are posting about it. But I want to, like, before we dive further into this, I want to make sure that you don't embrace this with fear. I want you to embrace this as a very positive thing for software engineers that are in this for the long run. I've always been of the impression that the custom solution world will move towards engineers forming their own companies and then contracting with companies on a project basis. Engineering teams are expensive. And I feel like anytime you see an engineering team downsize, if you can discover what they've outsourced to be able to do that and still, I mean, sometimes it's just downsizing because the company's hurting, but a lot of times it's a optimal solution. It's an efficient solution. And outsourcing engineering is a thing, but also outsourcing some of your engineering solutions to more automated solutions is also 100% going to become more of a thing. Advice for new front-end developers and the next skills they should build. Thank you. Developer, join our live Q&A on Friday. We're going to go over tons of web dev questions then. Right now we're focused on this topic. All right. It'll be Friday at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. So, I think low code, no code is kind of limited. And, you know, like I kind of touched on it a little bit. You can create, do not expect to be hired on an engineering team to create marketing pages with custom code. That's ridiculous. I don't think companies should ever hire engineers for that. Now, if you have like a marketing page that somehow has the functionality to link to kind of like a more custom complicated backend or that's questionable, but marketing pages, content, like heavy content websites, stuff like that, all that can be created with without knowing how to code. There's no reason to hire an engineer for that anymore. And so you're often going to see, you might get more custom CSS solutions, especially when you're going to deal with like a lot of animated stuff on the web page. But man, these problems have been solved already. I feel like unless you are going to dive into becoming a little bit more of a logic heavy developer, you got to question whether you're truly marketable. And that's can kind of be a scary thing for people that just wanted to get into front end just because they want to make pages look pretty. You have to do way more than that. I don't think like it's a controversial statement to tell you, like, you know this. You have to do way more than that. You have to learn JavaScript if you're going to be on the front. You have to pick up a framework. You'll have exceptions. You'll have these like random one-off positions that you really won't have to dive deep into JavaScript, but it's time. Like if you haven't yet, it's time to dive into JavaScript. Yeah, no problem, developer. Happy to answer that question then. So a lot of automations. I've actually been experimenting with Zapier and Integromat. I found out Integromat is a little bit of a cheaper solution. I like it. I'm actually still using it for free because I'm not building enough automations, but a lot of these automated solutions that are kind of connecting different applications and integrating these applications even into your own custom code base, they're incredible. They truly are. And I think it's hard. Sometimes I think it's hard for engineers to adopt this this ideology of just like keeping it extremely simple. Engineers are notorious for over-engineering solutions. So I don't think, often when you hear like low code, no code, usually you hear it from the perspective of engineers, but I would argue that you should ask product managers, you should ask CEOs and even CTOs and design and UX and marketing and even the financial department. Like, ask other departments whether they need engineers, whether like if solutions exist or not, where they actually need as many engineers as they thought. Like, a lot of different departments know how their departments work. They know what their departments need. And I think if you truly want to understand where this no code, low code movement is going in the next 5 to 10 years, you need to talk to other people inside the business, other departments. So a lot of perspectives I've heard from engineers. I think a lot of engineers are kind of just trying to cushion the advice. I truly think they're trying to cushion the advice, and I think we need to be careful of that. It's like, even with even the way I tackle giving advice for becoming a web developer, it's pretty candid. It's not, it doesn't I don't sugarcoat things. Some people actually think I sugarcoat things. I don't. I really don't. And I piss some people off with it too. But I think the more information you have, the better equipped you are at building out an actual plan with goals that you will actually achieve, right? You know, those sunshine tweets and, you know, a lot of the like curated positivity posts on LinkedIn will only get you so far. And very often they don't touch on the realities of the industry. They don't help people besides giving them a little extra motivation. I think they have a purpose, but I don't think, I think a lot of people just are too soft on what this movement is actually going to produce. And I think it's because of engineers is trying to cushion it for other engineers. So that's pretty much it. We're going to dive into some articles. I do have some ready. I kind of just want to read them and get a feel for what other people are thinking about this. One from Hacker Noon. All right. Here we go. I will have buttons, like I have a Stream Deck that should be able to convert a lot of this very quickly. I just don't have it set up just yet. So we're gonna manually do this. All right. You should be able to see my screen. Let's go. All right, why low code will never replace developers. I already disagree with this post. All right, simply put, psychology defines our decisions, professional and personal, as being fear-based or love-based. We either choose something out of enjoyment, for making us feel good, rewarded, all under the umbrella of love, or out of curiosity, fear of missing out. In the realm of software engineering, until 2012-14, things were pretty predictable and secure. Developers and their skills were vital to any business, irrespective of being a bank, a SaaS platform. They all required technology. Let's see, how long is this article real quick? Oh, it's fairly short. Okay. Can you interview and do a review about Freemote? I will keep it in mind, Zay. I think not enough people have really taken Freemote yet. It would be an interesting one, because I have my own opinions about freelancing while trying to become a developer, but isn't it like Shopify focus as well? But I'll keep it in mind. It's on my list. The state of the low-code job market, starting with the democratization of software development. This power was not anymore solely in the hands of engineers. The need for digital transformation brought along the need for faster delivery of business applications. Agree so far. It's forced companies to search for solutions outside of this department that by then proved to have the experience, possess the need skills to come up with a solution. It's how the first low-code platforms appeared. It's been 6 years since Forrester officially coined this term. In this time, both businesses and the software engineering job market transitioned from a trend to strong demand, from something exciting, rather cool, to something mandatory. As for the last 2 to 3 years, the interest and concern is for sure. Their software engineers are wondering if they should switch to low code or if this is only a trend that will pass in a couple of years. It is not a trend. It's not just a trend. I promise you that. Like any dilemma, rather than being a black and white answer, the healthy answer lies in nuances and all the gray hues. Transition periods can seem confusing and hard to navigate, and some people will find themselves in a crisis. Actors from silent films when the era of sound came, artisans when industrial revolution hit, they all somehow reiterated the same feeling. Okay, so essentially there's a history. It's kind of just like there's been a, not just with software engineering in general, but there's a history of just progress moving forward and people being skeptical of it. Did not mean everything they knew by then was completely taken out of the picture, but used as a launching pad for evolution, progress, to push people in society for better. We can talk about that. The exact same thing is happening with the low-code engineers. They will always be vital within any company, but the way they work will witness big changes. What's irreplaceable about developers? All right, this is going to be good. Without knowing the graphical symbols of a letter from a language, one won't be able to write nor read. The same goes with coding among US companies. A skill is considered as literacy. Okay. Essentially, low code exists thanks to developers. Before there was low code, there were developers with a strong set of hard coding skills, and they were not, they are not only responsible for its genesis, but for its maintenance. Any extension a low code platform might need is dependent on their experience and knowledge. So, and again, we talked about that. And I think businesses, you're always gonna, so the thing is, maybe he talks about it more, but the thing is, there's always going to be someone that's needed to to build out these automations, build out these systems, these applications, even if they're reused across multiple companies. But that still takes engineering jobs away rather than a custom solution being built for every single company, right? The more automation you bring, the less engineers are needed. So this idea that, oh yeah, well, we're always going to need engineers to build out these solutions. Yeah, but there are a lot of engineers that are going to get fired and lose their jobs because you can only have so many of these engineers building out these automated solutions and maintaining them. And I've even talked about, like, if you're going to have some custom automated solution that an engineer built out, companies are becoming more careful to have that siloed responsibility, siloed information, where they couldn't simply, bring in another engineer to try to jump on top of that project if they had to lose that engineer. I just feel like companies are trying to move away from that. It's too expensive to bring in an engineer that has to learn something brand new without an onboarding process. It's way too expensive. And you have to hire senior level for something like that. A second aspect, a second aspect where engineers perform best is, for example, in the case of delivering business applications. Low code does an excellent job at making everything more efficient about that, but without being able to understand complex rules and logic or business transactions, etc., you don't know how to simplify them. Making everything more efficient about that, but without being able to understand complex rules and logic, you don't know how to simplify them. I'm confused. Is the author saying that the low code engineer, whatever, needs to dive into more depth or logic, or is the author saying the automation, the depth and the complexity of the no code, low code solutions aren't going to be advanced enough to kind of bring in this complex rules and logic? Being able to architect and build APIs which can be used by this new breed of application will eliminate the risk of a whole array of issues. What a low code engineer basically does is shortcutting a process, which is awesome since it saves so much time, but it can also become a burden. This is for sure the case of complex solution or situations where traditional developers will play a key role. But for simpler situations, low code engineers will, with no previous traditional coding experience, have no reason to worry. It gives basic training. Any non-technical employee can rapidly assemble software tools. That's an interesting perspective. Low-code engineers with no previous traditional coding experience have no reason to worry. So, at my third company, we had an automation tool for businesses. I was a full stack engineer there, and I remember these software engineers being hired with the title of software engineers, but all they were doing, for the most part, I shouldn't say all they were doing, for the most part, they were just creating logical flows within our own application. and they were called software engineers. I mean, we could talk about like how titles are misrepresented and overused, but I feel like, and I talked to the engineers that kind of got stuck with this. They're like, I'm going to go in building custom solutions. We had a JavaScript stack, and they were really excited to really dive deep into JavaScript, and they were stuck creating like these automated solutions on this internal platform. They were doing some coding if, you know, like the CTO asked them to build like something real quick, but overall they were creating these solutions that had really nothing to do with code, and they got stuck with it. And that was the problem. It's like when you hire aspiring developers, software engineers that want to really dive into the complexity of becoming a software engineer and creating custom solutions, low code positions also have some depth. And sometimes it's more of like almost in the realm of like when you see QA create a lot of automations, because sometimes you see like QA positions transition into not customer support roles, but they will dive into like making a complex interaction or solution within the internal application. And what's the title of it called? But usually you see QA transition into these roles. But they're kind of just like creating, like if you have a lot of automated systems, you're trying to set up something complex for the customer. Sometimes it's even just not negotiating, but interacting with like back-end and front-end software engineers to try to create this custom solution for the customer. But it's like almost creating more of an automation, a custom solution for the customer, where I see, and I've seen this at my third company, software engineers coming in, and they were kind of just customer service solution experts. Maybe that's the title that I'm thinking of, but there's some depth in that, in really learning the whole internal application, and especially if you're going to get into a company that has any sort of like automated software that they built. I saw engineers get trapped, and they had a lot to learn. And they were told, yeah, you're eventually going to go ahead and build features on our product, but you know, we want you to learn this first, right? And it'll be a good introduction to getting into software engineering. And so, you know, some of those people quit. They're like, I don't want to just dive into becoming this like low code solution engineer. I want to do complex engineering. I want to like really learn JavaScript thoroughly. And that is a reality that I don't think a lot of people think of. So I would be careful if you feel like a low code solution might bridge the gap between like, if you're a QA, if you are product customer service into software engineering. Watch out for that trap, because a lot of companies, there's depth in these no code, low code solutions. I'm just going to call it low code. I'm not going to keep using both of those words together, but there's depth in this where you can create an entire position and pay someone a salary for this. And the company doesn't usually like transferring positions or transferring employees into positions when they already trained them for a different role. So I guess like this is kind of a rant, and I'm sharing my experience with engineers that have gotten trapped at my last company, but just beware of that trap, because I can see low code solutions creating that trap for engineers, because I've seen this with my eyes with my old company. More of a rant, not necessarily like part of this article, but it kind of just got me thinking a bit. All right, so focusing on strategic work will also be part of software engineers, irrespective if they will possess low code skills on top of their traditional ones or not. Low code will only give them the means to eliminate the need of writing repetitive lines of code, but when it comes to higher vision and if a solution is feasible from a technical standpoint, that will be their call, and their experience with hard coding will have a strong say in this. A third aspect is that currently there's no one-stop low-code platform that will cover all the application needs on the market. Some are working great for e-commerce, others are doing a great job for back office work, but if you want, that will cover Okay. Different needs altogether. You'll need a software engineer to take charge of that. Afterwards, this can be easily tackled by a low-code developer. Which leads to the last, but not least important aspect: teamwork, a healthy perspective, collaboration. Let me think. Let me finish reading. We'll go, at least let me read this perspective while I think about what I want to say. Revolution does not come to destroy everything that was built by then. It is born out of a pressing demand on the market. Low code did not come to threaten the old ways of coding, but to make it more efficient, faster, and definitely more exciting, both for engineers and companies. Low code pushes software engineers towards collaboration, forces them to improve their communication skills to better translate business needs, getting closer to clients, being in tune with their needs. Low code brings at the same table both the business owners, those with solely engineering skills, and those who possess both of them. Low code is an invitation for teamwork. It blurs the lines between departments, and at this table, there's plenty of room for everyone. To recap, why there's no need to fear the future of developers, but rather see it as an opportunity. Okay, so I agree with all this. I definitely agree with all of this. It's going to bring collaboration. It's going to help other departments understand engineering aspects, logical aspects of the automation. And I think it's also going to force some engineers to like learn the systems of design, UX, business, to be able to kind of create these low code solutions for them. I feel like even if you were trapped in that, you could leverage that experience into a new position at a different company. You could. And that was what those engineers, I believe, I didn't track them fully. That's what you should do. The problem is when you are an aspiring developer and you set a low expectation that an engineer needs to learn these low code solutions, barely do any coding, you're basically telling that engineer that they're not good enough to create these custom solutions yet. They're not good enough to be a true software engineer yet. We'll kind of warm you up to it. I don't think that's the right route to go. So the fault is of the company that did that, because it's also misleading when you do that and engineers are wanting to be a software engineer. But secondly, like, PC, you are 100% right. The engineers need to move into a different position and leverage that. I mean, if you have a software engineering title, don't lie in the interview. But that's the thing. It's like when they get to that interview, what do they have to show? Because I had this conversation with them as well. They don't have anything to show. Creating building blocks to create some automation for a solution for a customer isn't software engineering. You really didn't get experience with software engineering. It just feels wrong. It feels dishonest to put an engineer through that. And like I've talked about this with coding boot camps that will quickly hire and scoop up people that just graduated that wanted to be a software engineer. I just dumped a bunch of money and they're saying, oh, no, we'll even pay you to come back and teach in our program, and the salary's way lower than what it would be for a software engineer. I think software engineers in general should not, and anyone in general should not use a low code position to become a software engineer. It's wasting your time. It is a huge pivot. It's a huge pivot unless you are also spending 10 to 20 hours on the side working on side projects, keeping up with technologies. If you are doing that on the side and you can kind of get your foot in the door at a company, that could be a good thing, but it's a full-time job. People have families, people have stuff to do, people want to enjoy life, they don't want to work their life away. It's like you are just shooting yourself in the foot and making it take way longer to become a software engineer. But yeah, people that get stuck in those positions, get out of it. If you can leverage it, good. I felt so bad for those developers at my company. I truly did. All right. So to recap, why there's no need to fear the future developers, but rather see it as an opportunity. Low code started thanks to developers, and they will contribute to its evolution. Complex situations can be broken down to simple ones due to strong software engineering experience. It's all about collaboration. Hey, life. Low code cannot exist without hard code. Hard code wouldn't have progressed without low code. Same go. Just because low code is built through hard code doesn't mean it secures engineering positions, and this is the problem I have with it. It's like, think about the abstractions that have been formed, right? Started out with like low level languages, and you eventually got to a little bit more abstraction, like C#, JavaScript. Abstractions are where the jobs are plentiful nowadays, right? There are a lot of, like, you might have some legacy code bases or off positions that require a lot of low code knowledge. And it depends on the industry, but like software engineering industry in general, like usually abstractions are a good thing, and positions hire people for knowing those abstractions, right? So just because something is built with hard code doesn't mean those positions are secure. It means you're probably going to have to adapt potentially, or like I said, go really deep into the knowledge you know as a software engineer and get very specialized. I feel like this article's being dishonest. I feel like this article is being dishonest because like it's representing like this kind of what would you call it? Like not a Hail Mary. Can't think of the word for it, but it's basically saying, oh, low code positions will still exist, or these programs need to be built with low code. But yeah, you have to look at how many software engineers are going to get hired to, build these applications or maintain these automated applications as well. And I don't think that's really talked about here. Okay, I actually disagreed with this less than I thought I would, but I feel like it's a very short article, so I'm going to bring this up. It's another article that I thought was pretty good. Copy link. Let's do it. No code is not good enough yet. It will be a solid 40, 50 years. No. Look at 5 years. You're extending it way too far. Give it about... Hello? This is kind of a biased article, but I thought it would be a fun one. Wait. Yo, where did my article go? Hold on. They deleted the article. I literally just copied and pasted this yesterday. Okay. Let's see if we could search for it. Hold on. Anima. Yo, they even have paid advertisement for it still. Oh, here it is. Okay. They just changed the link, right? Here it is. So, yeah, Life, you make a good point. We're definitely at a spot. Can I turn this brightness down? Nah, I gotta mess with the monitor, so I'm not gonna do that. We're at a spot where this no code, low code is still at a fundamental step, but you have to think about how quickly technology progresses and advances. 40, 50 years, that is like, I would, like I said, I would trim that time frame down to about 5 years. I think in about 5 years, we are going to really see the effects of engineers that kind of don't want to adapt. A lot of engineers like that are going to lose their jobs. 100%. It's going to replace a lot of engineering jobs. It's already happening. In 5 years, it will definitely happen. A lot more. All right, so this one's obviously biased. I think Anima app is kind of like an automated solution designed to development platform. And so maybe I can disagree with some of it. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Anima. We convert designs into code, Figma to React automatically, and spare engineers the grunt work of pushing pixels. Anima is a low-code solution. It allows front-end engineers to do more No. Hold on. This is ridiculous. The brightness on this? Brightness, let's turn that down. Oh my god, that's so bright. All right, there we go. All right, so Anima is a low-code solution. It allows front-end engineers to do more with their time and deliver faster. We're obsessed with the future of coding on a daily basis, and I'll share some thoughts and insights here. There's quite a buzz these days about no-code. If you're a developer, you're probably wondering if the future of no-code means a future of no engineers. Allow me to start by answering my own question. No, it will not replace developers. Here's why. Both no-code and low-code approaches have been designed with one thing in mind: to develop products faster. However, they serve different use cases. What is no code and what is it for? No code is exactly how it sounds. No need to see the code equals no need for coding. However, complex apps still require human touch to customize logic and architecture, unique UX, and don't get me started on controlling your data warehouse. I would argue that's becoming a lot more automated nowadays. No code is great for landing pages, e-commerce sites, and with the evolution of tools like Webflow, also for basic apps. As an engineer, I'm super excited to see how software makes our lives easier. When creating a new software is made easier by software, I'm happy. Okay. Have you heard of low-code front-end? Unlike no-code, low-code means that developers are part of the flow, but work less. Low-code isn't new to backend and DevOps. Manage clouds like AWS, Heroku, Mongo Cloud, Redis Labs, and others like these. These platforms have revolutionary changed the way we managed our servers. And now the low-code revolution is coming to front end. I know because we're a leading player in this exciting new field, and it's fascinating to see where it is going. The future is shaping up to be one where front end engineers will need to do less grunt work and have more time for creative and innovative tasks, freeing developers to work on the core of the product and innovate more. And so the other aspect is freeing up front end developers to do less grunt work can create just improve productivity and be able to release features faster, which is true. And that really is the argument. It's like the main argument to this is it's freeing up developers to do more complex solutions. And that's essentially what I'm saying. But I think a lot of developers underestimate how many developers don't actually keep up with their skills, don't actually continue to grow constantly, where they're hired for that grunt work and they get comfortable at those positions. And so I guess, I mean, I kind of mentioned this before, but I do feel like a lot of engineers, like the engineer positions are going to drop in comparison to the number of engineers getting into our field. It's already happened. It has lessened, especially at the entry level. At mid-level and senior level, companies are starving for engineers. At entry level, it's become even more oversaturated, which I never thought it would become. It's just not needed. And a lot of companies are like, this is a whole live stream on its own, a whole topic on its own, but we could dive into, our entry-level requirements truly too high? And my short answer is no. Engineers just aren't being prepared well enough for what's required in this world. A lot of educational programs are under-preparing engineers, which is kind of scary because we're going to continue to see oversaturation. But a lot of basic engineers, like, you can start replacing most of their work with automated tools. You just can. I'm sorry to say this, but you just can. And that doesn't mean companies won't hire entry-level developers, but it does mean they're going to hire less of them. And it means the bar is going to get higher. And that's okay. Like I said, I think engineers are going to be paid very, very well, way higher than what they're already paid for what's to come. It's just, you know, when you have coding boot camps that flood the market with a bunch of basic skills, that bar is eventually going to be set higher. Companies need to push out a product, they need to be efficient about it, and that bar is going to be set higher for engineers, and automated tools will replace engineers that aren't willing to meet those standards. It's just true. So, will no code replace developers for simple do-it-yourself apps? Yes. So this is where I think we kind of are now. And in the next 5 years, more of what I'm saying is going to become truer and truer. Just wait. Call me out on it. 5 years later, I should still have a YouTube channel. Come back to this video. Call me out on my BS if I am completely wrong. But in the next 5 years, everything that I'm saying will become more prevalent. It will become more obvious to people. When you're looking to build anything a little more complex, you need developers, and with time, developers could rely on low-code tools to deliver better products faster. What are we working on today? Low code. Yeah, I'm actually kind of interested in this tool. As a low-code tool meant for developers, use code quality as our top priority. We are developers serving developers. Anima is not perfect, but the code quality is improving weekly. Okay, what are you? Down the road, you can expect stateful components, more platforms on top of React, and a lot more in the pipeline. This is all just around the corner. Okay, you really didn't. Okay, that's fine. That's not what this article is about. And that's completely okay. So I kind of want to sum this up because this is important. Low code solutions are a great thing for the industry. Let me say this. If you want to be an engineer that is very hirable, if you want to be an engineer that makes a lot of money, if you want to be an engineer that should have no fear of this movement, you have to continue progressing. Even when you get that position, do not get comfortable in that position. You have to progress. And often it doesn't mean necessarily changing jobs, but it also means like building personal projects that do challenge you again. You have to continue progressing. You have to stay up to date with like a lot of your skills. And I feel like this is blanketed information you always get, but I think people really underestimate the value of that information. And I think right now we're at a point where it's kind of like with AI. Artificial intelligence, quite frankly, should be feared in the next 5 to 10 years. I think Elon Musk has a really good take on it. Not feared, but we should be very cautious. And like we're gonna start getting into ethical AI development, right? But it's at a very fundamental state right now where people kind of just blow it off. It doesn't matter, right? It's not at the forefront. And we've been trained over the last 2 years to be just shoved with so much controversial information and like fear mongering. And like, I think a lot of people's brains are just tired. And so, you know, issues like this are just going to get blown off. And understandably, I get people you should just be focused on becoming a better engineer. That's what's going to get you a job. But over the next 5 years, I want you to pay attention to the automated solutions that are forming. I want you to pay attention to the needs that product managers still have, to the needs that QA still has, that other, you know, business executives have. You need to you can't just be a code monkey. You have to pay attention to everything around you, all the other departments. Find out, are their needs being met by different solutions? Don't be the engineer that forces a custom solution when it's not needed. Don't be the engineer that over-engineers, because you are going to be the engineer that gets laid off when the company isn't making as much money as what it did. So you can go into this movement welcoming the low-code solutions, and you should. But to just act like you can just continue doing what you've been doing and get comfortable in your position is just it's not the case. I'm genuinely worried about engineers that get too comfortable. I've seen it a lot. Even aspiring engineers, when you don't have that initial momentum that's strong enough, It's like, how do you think you're going to be able to pursue this career and pursue engineering in general? It's a career, at least most engineering positions are something you have to keep up to date with. Now, from like a business aspect, low code solutions are phenomenal. And this can potentially save the company money to be able to afford a bigger engineering department if like that company does want tons of custom solutions, which is really cool. But if engineers fight against it, that's where, when engineers fight against it rather than working with business, that's where I see people having a different perspective of engineers, because I've seen that in my first position. I guarantee you that the woman that got hired into marketing, she would have fired all of us if she could. And we have to, as engineers, be careful of that, and we have to kind of just be open to what's coming. So right now, we're kind of at the fundamental stages, just like I mentioned with AI, with low code, but it's going to advance very quickly in the next 5 years. So let me know if anyone disagrees. That's it. That's all I had. I want to copy and paste that. He's been spamming that in every channel. Copy. So what do you guys think of the low code movement? I kind of just spit out everything that I thought of it. Okay. I guess Streamlabs chat is broken. That's cool. I asked you about your thoughts on no code, low code movement about 3 weeks ago. At the time, you didn't know much about it. Then looks like it piqued your interest. It did, Amir. It did. If you were the one that asked me, that's thanks for asking me. It kind of caught my interest. Sometimes when things are introduced in chat, I just don't know about it, or I don't really have an opinion about it yet. But I'll think about it, and then I'll kind of like look up a YouTube video while I'm like eating or something like that. And I started doing that for the low code movement because, and what I've been doing with kind of just managing content, in my one-on-one coaching and trying to like track all my clients and stuff like that, it's like I've brought in automated solutions to be able to do that. I've been looking for improving my productivity, which I think a lot of engineers can improve their productivity with automated solutions. So that, I guess when I started automating and trying to be more productive in my day to get more done, that's when I started like really exploring it more. But yeah, thanks for bringing it up. So does or will this affect aspiring developers trying to get into the field? I answered that. Yes. 100% this will affect aspiring developers getting into the field. It is current, like boot camps have just spit out way too many aspiring developers. Market is extremely oversaturated. Like anyone that says, oh yeah, positions are plentiful, they are for software engineers, but you're being dishonest. Anyone that says positions are becoming more plentiful and there's more opportunities for aspiring developers, it's like you are full of shit. You are not being real with people. And it hurts aspiring developers. Every aspiring developer can eventually get that position, but then you get like promises of like, oh yeah, positions are plentiful, pay us $20,000 for this coding bootcamp, and you know, like we'll get you a position in like 3 months, we'll get you a position in 6 months. It's like, you have to look at how long it's taking for people to get into a position, to get like an overall feel of like this market is so oversaturated. Mid to senior level positions, companies are struggling to hire those developers. Entry level and just, well, I shouldn't even say entry level, junior level developer positions, not so much. And low code solutions, like if you expect to set the bar low for yourself getting into a company, a low code solution will be a way better option than hiring you, 100%, right? Unless the company can afford a long-term budget to ramp you up. And a lot of companies just can't afford that nowadays. Like it's really like, my advice is like, just keep coding, keep building projects. Don't get frustrated because you just built 3 CRUD apps and you're not getting hired. It's going to take a lot more than that. And that's truly the message. So yeah, it will affect aspiring developers. I've been working in this space for about 2 years. I think it's a big game changer. It's huge. What is so? Oh, okay. I see it akin to Excel for business users. It's a very popular tool because non-coders can do data analysis So no code and low code, in my opinion, will touch every aspect of a company from HR to sales. It will. It 100% will. I was looking at all the apps that Integromat would integrate with. Sorry, I just caught the back end of the error. Oh, okay. Well, my bad. I guess I shouldn't have assumed you've been here the whole time. Sorry about that. You're good 2 times. Yeah, it is. I've been looking at all of the apps that you can integrate together or just connect together, and it touches every aspect of the business. It's really amazing. There are 3 things that I think you should be paying attention to with technology in general. I'm just biased. Like, there are obviously way more stuff that you should pay attention to, but 3 things that I am really fascinated and scared by, depending on like the context. The no code, low code solution, automating things. I'm more interested in that. I'm going to keep an eye on it. Artificial intelligence, how that's going to shape our society. And in my eyes, in a very negative way, because I think people underestimate how important it is to really focus on the ethics of artificial intelligence. In the metaverse. I think the metaverse is a really interesting thing. All 3 are at a like very basic version of themselves right now. And in 5 years, all 3 of them will accelerate a lot. I don't think we could even picture what we're going to be capable of in 5 years with all 3 of those. Now, metaverse, very interesting aspect. I think it's going to cause a lot of psychological damage, and I want to do a whole live stream on that. And I think it's a very interesting project. I just don't trust Mark Zuckerberg, as many people don't. I don't think he should be the person leading that whatsoever. And I think I will do an entire live stream, but I think that's going to have drastic effects of making people way more depressed and anxious, antisocial. We're in for a world of hurt if you think the last 2 years have been anything. But I want to dive into that with a different live stream because there's so much like depth and complexity to that. I'm about to get into the field, and this makes me inspired. That's awesome, Rasmus. It should. Maybe, and for those that think I'm saying, I want to be clear, software engineering is going to be a very fruitful field. Software engineers are heavily going to be required over the progressing, like over the next 5, 10, 20, let's just say like 5 to 10 years at least. It's a very fruitful field to make a really good living off of. It's going to eventually evolve into something that isn't hard code. Most of what we do is going to be automated. But it's a very, like, if you want to get into software engineering right now, I think it's a great field to get into. I truly do. Ask me in 5 years. I will give you my opinion in 5 years, but I want to stress, like, it's changing the software engineering field, but over the next 5 to 10 years, it's still something, as long as you really enjoy coding, it's something that you can have a very successful career in. Excuse me. The good news is, if you are a developer, you have a leg up since many of these apps can further customize with JS or other language. Yes. As long as you, I mean, like I say now, like if you're building static pages and like, you know, heavy content websites and stuff like that, and that's the primary purpose of your position, you're probably going to be outsourced very shortly. You might not, but you have to realize, like, that's just now. Wait until about 5 years. Like a lot of what you build in JavaScript that you think these automations could never build, I think that's going to drastically change. And so you just have to pay attention to what tools exist. You have to pay attention to the needs of different businesses and just software engineering in general. That means like going on different blogs and following different advice and YouTubers and to share the most up-to-date information. But you have to stay up to date with it. It's going to be easier, even easier to fall behind in software engineering. You always hear about this idea of like a lot of software engineers, they just fall behind. They get comfortable in their positions. They're the ones that get laid off. And you hear about this a lot, and that's going to become more prevalent. Please stay up to date. I agree with you about Mark. Yeah, that's a whole conversation. We'll be doing a live stream about it. I'm definitely going to be doing a live stream about the metaverse. And more importantly, I'm also interested to see where virtual reality ends up. I am surprised we're not further with virtual reality than we currently are. And I think we're going to see huge advancements based on the metaverse. But virtual reality in general is kind of just a really cool technology, especially if you were ever a gamer. I definitely was. I'm excited to see where it goes. Like I said, my skepticism just comes from Mark Zuckerberg leading that venture. All right, that's it. We're done. So I got a new mic. If you are watching the video afterwards or anything like that, let me know how the sound quality is, because I probably might need to adjust a few settings. Because before I just had the Blue Yeti. This is more of a, what do you call it? Not a condenser mic, but not a hybrid. I don't know. It's the Shure SM7B, so it's a different type of mic. If the sound settings sound off in any way, let me know, and I'll continue trying to adjust the settings a little bit. Have you spoken about blockchain development in any previous streams? I have not, but we're going to be diving into that this year. 100%. Blockchain, 100%. So it'll probably, I have a live stream planned for kind of just decentralized solutions in general. Because with the restrictions lifted with what banks can do, based on the restrictions lifted in the Federal Reserve, just cryptocurrency in general and anything like decentralized away from like huge institutions is going to become a much more interesting topic. It's already an interesting topic, but it's going to be more in your face, more prevalent. I want to touch on that as well. Elon is doubtful of the metaverse. I know he is. I didn't see the whole conversation. I saw clips with Lex Friedman. Is it Friedman or Friedman? But I know he's very skeptical of it. He's also very skeptical of AI in general. For the metaverse? Okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. There's no hope for you. All right, so that's it. Thanks for being here. If you're watching the past broadcast, let me know what you thought. I want to start going into more topics like these, and I've also thought about it. You'd be surprised at how many controversial takes that I hold back. I don't know. I'm done holding back. I'm gonna piss off some people. It's just gonna happen, and that's fine. I'm gonna gain new subscribers from it. I'm gonna lose some subscribers from it. But I kind of just want to say everything that's been on my mind. So we'll be doing more live streams where I will get to do that. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for being here, everyone. I really appreciate you. And as far as Patreons and stuff like that, I should release new rewards hopefully by the end of this week. And I want to start shouting out patrons. So Ryan, I guess since you're here, thank you so much for the support. I do appreciate it. But I want to start doing that at the end of live streams. That's it. Have a good night, everyone, or good rest of your day. And happy coding. Take care.